Welcome back, everybody. So we got a quick video today and we're going to be talking about toxic PIs. Now, what I'm not talking about is a PI that you sometimes disagree with or sometimes you don't quite get your way. That's normal. You're going to have that in grad school. Sometimes you're going to think that your PI is a little off his rocker. Sometimes you're going to think that your PI doesn't know what he's doing. That's okay. That's part of growing and finding your footing and establishing yourself as your own independent scientist. What we're talking about today are those examples where you have PIs that are just extremely toxic, that it is no good working in that lab, and kind of what are some options that you can use or shouldn't do, or we'll get into all of that. So we're actually going to start with giving an example of a lab that I worked in that was extremely toxic. When I first started grad school, the PI I was working with, there was always yelling. There was always a sense of trying to put each other down. And this started with the PI and worked its way down where even the more senior grad student in the lab kind of acted in the same way. And I remember when he kind of, he wanted to, I think what he wanted to do was tell me he thought maybe I wasn't cut out for it, but instead he pretty much said, drop out, you're not smart enough, you're not going to succeed. Like, the way that he went about it was just extremely rude. It was like borderline just insulting me, saying I'm too stupid, I should just quit. There was constant yelling. It was just a toxic environment. That's not an environment that you want to be working in, right? So what do you do when you have a situation like this? Because this is something that's going to happen to people where they end up in labs and it doesn't work out. The first thing that I think that you should definitely do is try starting some dialogue with the PI. I know that you might be thinking to yourself, well, if this person is so toxic, what good is talking to them going to do? Well, it could do two things. The first thing that it can do is it can maybe smooth things out. Maybe they don't realize how harsh they're being, or that what they're doing, maybe it works for somebody else, but it doesn't quite work for you. But you need to point it out to them so they realize that there's something wrong that they're doing. The second thing is that if you want to eventually try some of these other things that I'm going to talk about, one of the first steps you need to do is demonstrate that you've tried all avenues to make things work, okay? So definitely do try to start a dialogue with whoever the PI is and let them know, hey, what you're saying just doesn't fly. It doesn't work for me and I'm not really getting anything out of this. And this is gonna really be the best outcome if they could kind of change course and fix the way that they're going, because you clearly joined their lab for a reason. There's a reason that you want to work with them. Okay. The second thing that you could do, and this is more geared towards grad students more than postdocs, but this could also apply to postdocs as well, is transition into a different lab. And that's actually what I did. So I started grad school. I did not like the PI. I tried having a candid talk with him that, the way that things were going just wasn't working for me and that I wanted things to be different, but things just never changed. And so what I did was I talked to the, department chair. That's kind of their job, is to oversee everything that goes on in the department. And I said, look, for X, Y, and Z, this isn't working. And the first thing he said was, did you try talking to this PI? Did you let him know what he's doing is affecting you in this way? And I said, yeah, I let him know, and it's not working. And, what he did was he said, if that's really the case, then you kind of have three options. And these are the three options that any of you would have too. The first option is to just stick with it and put up with it. The next option is to just leave, right? He said you could always leave if you don't want to be here anymore. And the third option is that if you could find another PI that would be willing to take you in, you could go work with them. And, I actually contemplated for a long time and was actually really close to taking that second option of just leaving altogether and just saying, you know what, maybe I'm just not cut out for grad school. Maybe it's me. That's what I thought at first. that the issue was me, that it wasn't the PI, that I was the issue. And maybe he's right. I am just not smart enough, and, I'm not going to succeed. And I had some, friends in the department that convinced me otherwise, that, you should look around and see who else you could find. And they pointed out that there was a couple different PIs in the department that had gotten recent funding, and maybe they wanted a new grad student. And, one of them actually did and took me in, and it ended up being the best decision I'd ever made. Because of staying there, I ended up staying long enough to get married to my wife, and, we have a kid. I ended up having a really successful time in grad school. I really grew a lot as a person. It set me up to, come out to Boston for my postdoc and then transition into industry. It really changed a lot in my life. And so I'm glad people talked me into not just walking away and giving it another shot. But that is something that you can consider. You can consider, leaving. My personal advice from my own experience and from what I've seen with other people is don't. It's not uncommon to transfer from one lab to another in grad school. It happens, more frequently than you would think. And I'm sure that those of you watching could probably think of at least one person that started off in one lab and then finished in a different lab. It happens. It's fine. Just keep that in mind. Now, if you're a postdoc, it's a little bit different. You can transition to other people within the department, but the department doesn't have kind of a stake in keeping you there, right? They don't want attrition. They don't want people just leaving their program. So they have an incentive to try to keep you within the department and shuffle you to a different lab, because they want that success, the completion rate, right, of how many people graduate. You can't get that if people are just willy-nilly leaving. In a postdoc, it's a little different. They don't care whether you come and go or whose lab you're in. So it is possible to transition to a different lab, but it wouldn't really be kind of the same route. You would have to more kind of approach a PI within the department or university and say, hey, I'm doing my postdoc here. Things just aren't working out. Can I come over to your lab? And that happens all the time. We had people that interviewed, one that actually joined the lab that I was doing a postdoc in. He was doing it at a different affiliate hospital of Harvard Medical School, and things just weren't working out. It was not quite the experience he was looking for. So he reached out to the PI that I was doing my postdoc in their lab, because they had done some collaborative work, and said, hey, things just aren't working out in this lab. Do you mind if I interview for a position in yours? And it's worked out a lot better for him. So yeah, that can happen. If not, you could just start applying to elsewhere, right? So now that you have your degree, you're not tied to any one specific place. You're kind of free to move about as you want. So don't feel like, well, it didn't work out here and I just have to stay here. If you're at the end of your postdoc, or you're at the end of your grad school and things start turning a little sour, that's a little different. There you might need to just grind it out. But if you're talking, early, less than a year in, don't put up with it. Just leave. It's not worth your time. You're not going to grow the way you want to. You're going to be miserable. And one of the big things is, as you move forward with wanting to find a postdoc or find a postgraduate job, you're going to need letters of recommendation. And one of the people they're going to want to hear from, or two of the people, are going to be your postdoc advisor and your grad school advisor. And if you're not close with them, if you guys really don't like each other, it's going to become really, really hard to get letters of recommendation from them. So you kind of need them to be on your side, right? Even after you leave, you need to be amicable with each other. So don't force it, for a lot of different reasons, not just a letter of recommendation, but for your own sanity. You don't force it, find something that's going to work for you. So this is a little bit of a shorter video. I kind of wanted to make it just because I think there's this perception out there that everybody that's going through grad school or through a postdoc just really gets along with their PI, and that's not necessarily true. And there's different levels to that. So there's people that love their PIs, right? So I'm one of those people. I was fortunate enough in grad school and my postdoc to really love my postdoc PI and my grad school PI. They were both fantastic. There are people that are kind of like in the middle where they like their PI, they're okay with their PI, but they're not their favorite, and that's fine. And then there are the other extreme, which is also I've been on that extreme where you hate them and they hate you. I don't know if hate's the right word, but there's some real beef going on between the two of you. You guys don't like each other and you guys aren't getting along, and that's fine. Like, that happens. Don't let that put a damper on your experience. Don't let that make you feel like you did something wrong. I promise you, there are other people out there going through the same thing. And you need to think to yourself, is this a situation that I could just grind through it and just finish it? If not, what are my options? Should I leave? Should I talk to a department head? Should I talk to another PI? Those are all things to consider, but it is normal to move labs. Don't feel like just because you moved labs, that it's the end of the world or that you failed or something, because I don't look at my experience in that way. I look at it as a fantastic decision that helped me to succeed, really. So with that, I'm gonna wrap up this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.